You guys, welcome Denise Centeno to the podcast today. You guys are going to love this episode. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me. Really
Yay.
appreciate it. Yes. And need I say, she is the first one to bring out Straight Out of Darkness. Yes. And I'm excited for this. I'm ready.
Yes. So she is a mutual friend. She has a mutual friend of mine and that we've been friends with for years and years. And when I saw my friend posting about your book, it's called Straight Out of Darkness, A Story for God's Glory, and a little
Yeah.
bit of your backstory. I was like, oh my God, she needs to be on the Craving Consciousness podcast because people need to hear your message.
Yes. It's a vital one. It's one that has the capability to just be a defibrillator into somebody's darkness. It has the ability to be able to uplift and encourage. It's almost as though it's an antidote, of goodness, of inspiration and encouragement. I came out of a dark place. I was born and raised here in the city of Chicago. I'm a native. I was born and raised in the community of Humboldt Park. And so this is where the whole book took place. Many are going to be very familiar here, the localies, the Chicagoans. They're definitely going to know when I speak of Humboldt Park and some streets and some neighborhoods, it's definitely going to become familiar as it's an epidemic nowadays, right? Addiction. We have so much addiction happening out in the streets that I fell hard into darkness when it came to the addiction of crack cocaine. And there I was, and I was introduced to it. But prior to all of that, I'll get into the goodness of the book. It all, of course, I started it on my birthday, December 18, which is next week. And I just went into a great life. I had a great life growing up, and it was great. I do have a generational curse of being molested as a child by my grandfather. And I did speak of that. I went into some great details. And, I come from a familia, right? That, hey, we don't talk about that. Shh, that stuff is not spoken of. And that's where the curse begins, because when you don't talk about it and bring a resolve and, help understand situations and bring clarity to a child's mind, I believe that's where I fell, and that's where I became angry and bitter. And then things just started tumbling. My father left my mom, as I was 11 years old when he left my mom for another woman. And it's very understandable. My mom was broken, she was left with three children to raise all on her own. And my father was a very dominant father. He raised us. He was the discipliner. He was the one who, always took care of us and taught us the ropes of life. So when he left, my mom was just like, what am I going to do now? So I can't blame her. She was upset, and, but it also affected me, her ways and how she used to come home upset and angry and bitter. And instead of trying to ease it or embrace me or hug me, I received the opposite. It was nothing but bitterness and anger and, like, I'm hurting too, mom, but it led me to the streets, because I was just that person like, oh God, I can't deal with this. I had to go. So I did. And luckily back then in our days, right, that we had field houses. We had a place to go back in the late 80s, early 90s. We had a place to go to let out our anger, we had an outlet, should I say. So that's what I did. I used that as an outlet, and I got involved, with a lot of sports. I was an athlete since I was born. And I got involved and I hung out at the park a lot, but eventually, bad company corrupts good character, so I actually got involved with the wrong people and got introduced to the wrong friends. Got introduced to marijuana. I started smoking and and then smoking cigarettes. And then from there, how young kids are, let's join a crew together. And we joined a crew and we formed a crew. From the crew, it turned out, nope, you all got to be the gang banging rivals, the gang bangers of the neighborhood. So we had to turn out. So I turned out to be a game banger, and I was in the streets back 20 years ago when people talk about how bad Humboldt Park used to be. Woo, mija, that was me. Santo, forgive me. I've been forgiven, but it's some rowdy stuff going on from chapters 1 through 5. Let me tell you. chapters 1 through 5 in the book, it really, really dives in and it talks. And I just really let out all of what happened and what led me up to that moment and how my mom's bitterness led me into the streets. And then eventually I met my son's father, um, who, we met and we got entangled in, and it felt good and felt right. And he was a game banger as well. And we all know that when you meet somebody in that life, there's only two outlets to go, and that's 6 feet or under or in jail. And yes, he landed in jail. So he landed there, and I was doing the whole bid with him. He came out, I got pregnant, had my son. I didn't really know him well, right? And we actually got into our first physical fight. And girl, it was like an arena. We had like a boxing arena right in the center of my kitchen. And it was our first physical fight. And he walked out on me and he left me there. And I was with the baby. And he was gone all day. Girl, yo estaba ahí. I was cleaning the house from top to bottom, corner to corner, right? Like cursing his name, you mother flowers, ay, este condenado, like, just it's bad, like, when you're upset, right? You just got into your first fight, baby dad, So I did. And then I wasn't sitting in the kitchen table and he walks in, and it's literally how the book starts. It says, Ricky placed 2 bags of crack cocaine and a nickel bag of weed in front of me and said, this is what I do when I get upset. It helps me, and I know it can help you. So
Wow.
that's literally how chapter 3 ends. And then chapter 4, OMG, Ma, that is so intense. Because thanks to my coach, I love you, coach. um, Thanks to my coach, she really brought a lot of life to this. I had never written a book. This is my first book
So when you're
ever.
saying coach, are you talking about sobriety coach or a coach to help you write it?
She was brought to me, yes, to help me fulfill my book. Yes. So
Okay.
she herself, she's an educator. She just retired as a principal for the Chicago Public Schools. She did an amazing job for over 30 years. I love her to death. And yeah, so I was writing the book, and I was like, oh my God, Lord, please, I need some help. And help, ask and you shall receive, seek and you find, knock and the door will be open. And there it was. I was like, okay. And I was blessed with her. And yes, she helped me fulfill it.
Well,
So
so I would like to add for the the people that are listening to just a little blurb in there. It's like you were saying, I don't know how to write a book, and you ask me, you shall receive. So there's so many people listening right now that
yeah.
have something that if they could put it out into this third dimensional world, it's going to help other people transform. And that's what you ended up doing.
Yes, yes. And it was a miracle. I didn't know how I was going to start. Writing has always been inside of me, for those of us who are, gifted, with that gift of writing. I really believe it's always stirred up inside of us. At some point of another, we've journaled, we've written poems, we have some sort of writing in our background, some way, somehow. And I just feel like in 2020, when I was called by the Lord to sit down, uh, I felt like I gave birth to my gift, and I didn't know how to do it, where to start. I didn't know, just like everybody else, I was completely clueless, but what my coach refers to, my writing coach, she refers to it as, Denise, you were just letting it out. You were just letting it out. And I did. And I could say now, now that the book is written and it's published, I started in chapter 5. That's where I started at. The game banking was wicked. The drug life was, oh man, I'm telling you, chapter 5, it just gets intense. So, but yeah, and it's all owed to her, all owed to her, because I was just letting it out, and I was just like skimming through, like, oh, this happened, and I would write about it. But then it took her to be like, Denise, bring me to the moment. Let out your emotions, right? Because that's something we don't want to talk about. We don't want to talk about the emotions. We don't want to, reveal and tap into that side of life, but, it was time to heal. It
Yeah.
was to
I think
heal.
that's what makes it more relatable to your audience that's going to read it too, because they are sitting there and they're going to feel how you felt and they're going to relate.
Yes, yes. And that's vital. That is so vital. And I really believe that this has the ability and the capability to be able to touch somebody's soul because it again, we grew up in this generation of shh, we don't talk about that. That's the generation we grew up in. But little do people realize that when you take it to prayer, you forgive and you move past it and you rise and you shine, rise above, the darkness and the heaviness in which you're weighed down with, because ultimately that's what we're carrying is a baggage of heaviness when we don't talk about it, when we're shh, cállate, we don't talk about that stuff. No, 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 no. I'm gonna talk about it because it makes me feel better. I feel better when I let it out. I feel better when God holds me accountable to say, forgive that person. So a lot of times we don't want to touch those areas because we gotta forgive. We have to be held accountable, take accountability for the things that I had to take a lot of accountability. I stole money as an addict. I stole money from my mom. You know how hard that is to have to confess with my mouth. It was horrible. I sat here with these hands and I hurt so many people. And it wasn't nice. It wasn't fun to write about it. But ultimately, what I learned and I grew from was that I was healed by it. That when I did let it out, that when I did talk about it, when I did just scream and pout and shout and cry about it, and I say, I forgive them or take accountability, Father, please forgive me. Because sometimes that's a very hard outlet as well. It's taking accountability for the things that we've done. I used to game bang, I used to steal, I used to rob people's purses for their money, just to feed my son and go get high. Let's be real. I put myself on blast because that's the way you make a story with truth. The truth shall set you free. And I believe that's what I'm walking in, this my freedom right now.
That's
So
beautiful. I love it. So
oh,
you said you've been sober or clean for eight years, you said?
18,
18.
18,
Dang,
18
girl.
years. Yes,
Yeah,
girl.
so when did you decide to write the book then?
So the book, I gave birth to the book. Of course, it took a lifetime to write, need I say. It took 40 years in the wilderness to put this story together. But well, prior to my book, I was driving Lyft for 5 years. And in 5 years, I completed 10,000 rides. Of those 10,000, 9,000 of them said, Denise, you need to write a book. And I was like, I don't have time for that. So when, this whole plague of this coronavirus, touched down and the whole world went on lockdown, the Lord said, what's your excuse now? I said, oh, okay.
Love
So
being called out. You're
I
like,
had
I feel so attacked, God. I feel so
it was
attacked.
like I couldn't let go. It was like it was so clear, right? While everybody else, the whole world went into a destruction. They didn't know what to do. They're falling apart. You talk about alcohol sales were on the incline at that time. People couldn't stand each other's presence in the house. Fights and arguments were on an incline. Come on, let's look at the statistics on this. But I chose, right? Because life is all about a choice. We have a choice to make. And I chose to utilize this time wisely. I treated this book when I heard from the Lord, and I was like, okay, you know what? You're right. Let's do it. What better time? So March 23rd of 2020, I sat down when Chicago went on lockdown the 21st of March. 2 days later, 48 hours, I started writing and I started letting it out. I walked all through the neighborhood where I happened because I actually reside just a couple blocks away from where all of this originally happened. So, but I took the time and I walked down memory lane And it just brought back all the memories, just started pouring in, and everything just started coming back. And then I came back to my house ready to write. So then I just started letting it out. And it was maybe about 3, 4 months on lockdown. That's when I had truly prayed, like, I need guidance. Lord, help me. Give me your provision here because I don't know how to do this. And I was a deacon at the time. And
What's that?
a deacon of the church. So we're the right hand to the pastor. So whenever he calls an altar call, people go to pray for people. I was the person who would pray for the people. So I would go to the altar, we would pray, and he had called in all of the deacons to go. We were going to hit the community, where even though Corona had hit us, our pastor of the church, he didn't allow that to stop us. As a church, we went to go serve the community
Mhm.
with his strongest. So he brought out the deacons and we all gathered, and we gathered, with social distancing in the parking lot. And that's when we mingled. Hey, how you doing? Oh my God, it's been months. How you doing? So, and it just happened to be that my writing coach, we went to Israel together because we visited the Holy Land. So we knew each other from then. So she approached me, hey, Denise, how you doing in this time? And I told her I reported excitingly that I was writing a book, and she was like, oh my God, like, do you need help? And that's when I knew that it came from God, because she was the answer. She goes, I'm an educator. Like, I'm a principal. I was a teacher. I can help you. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I just knew it was of God. And she literally stuck by me 3 years and 8 months that it took to write this book. She was the only person to stick there, be there, volunteer her time, and give me her heart selflessly. Like, she just dedicated her time. And this book is truly what it is. Although the Lord is the writer, I'm the obedient author, but honestly, I could say, like, it was because of the obedience and the intellect that she brought, it polished up this book very well, so it just brought a masterpiece. It just totally brought a masterpiece of healing. That's what she did. She helped polish it up and make it look good. In the beginning, it was a little rough. I'm not going to lie. I started in chapter 5. Thank God for my coach that we gave birth to chapters 1 through 4, because who wants to go that far in? Who wants to talk about being molested? Who wants to talk about that curse and, go back into that time, right? I didn't want to,
Yeah.
but after she enlightened me, Denise, I think we should do this, like, what do you think? And maybe here, and how did that make you feel? And it was kind of like therapeutic sessions together, and then not only that, but I also took it up in prayer. Like, I didn't just allow what she said to dictate me, because ultimately I'm just a prayer warrior. I love to pray and I love the Lord. And, when I connect, right, with the Lord for that spiritual guidance, it's yeah, he told me I was going all the way into into the generational curse. But then I understood why. Because if that curse was upon me, then it fell onto my children. And as you will read in chapter 6, this curse fell onto my children, and then I talk about how my daughter's father, molested her, and the impact that it had on me, because by then I was already strung out on crack cocaine. You know,
Oh my
I was
God.
already strung out on crack cocaine. I was on it for 7 years. I fell to crack cocaine for 7 years. And it was walking in darkness and just sinking 10 degrees colder every single day. It was horrible. It was like I was living, but I was just existing. You know, I had no purpose. I had nowhere to go. I had nobody to talk to. Yeah, you got friends when you got something to get high with. But when I was down and out, and my mama, she threw my stuff out in the alley and she said, you got to go. You ain't gonna be here. I stole $800 from her. What did I think was gonna happen? Duh, you
Mhm.
know? But when reality settled in and I came and I saw her, she threw all of my stuff out in the alley. I said, whoa. That's when I literally, as I referred it to in the book, became a citizen of hell. So I walked out and I was homeless. I was homeless for 3 months. I slept in the back of people's porches. I slept in their garage. I slept in Chicago, playgrounds, Luis Munoz Drive, Right now, thank God they have tents. I didn't have a tent. I had just me, myself, and I, and a beater with a heater is what I refer to, but it kept me covered and it kept me shielded. At least, that's what he provided. But at the same time, I hit rock bottom. And that's when ultimately life changes, when you hit that rock bottom. And
Mhm.
I was out in the streets and I was there. And it took another big fight from my son's father. He nodded up my eye real big. Um, but then my mom has seen it and she's like, come on back home. So I came back home. I came back home. I was still smoking. I was responsibly, but I was still smoking. But yeah, and then the book just goes into thoroughness and
Yeah.
detail.
So I know that the audience is probably wondering, how is your relationship with your mother now?
My mother, I believe in my heart, my mother still has not forgiven me. Um, I mean, I haven't seen her, talk to her since 2018, you know.
Okay.
Uh it's sad, but I mean, hey, just the same God that, hey, again, you're gonna know the heart of stone that I had because it was hard. And if he took my heart of stone and gave me one of flesh that I may feel again, I know that he's gonna do it for her too.
Mhm.
I cannot pray and think that I'm God to also answer the prayer. Mm-mm. No, let him do it. She'll eventually come to. I mean, she broke my heart when she even told me she didn't want to read my book. So, but it's okay. I love her. I have forgiven her. I don't hold any grudges against her. I cannot sit here and be upset at somebody who never knew the Lord. I never grew up in the Lord. I never knew who God was. I knew of him, but I didn't know who he was. I was never taken to church. I was never, brought forth in knowing who God is and serving him. And I didn't know anything about that. So I can't blame her. So we can't blame somebody for not teaching something they had no knowledge of themselves. So,
Yeah.
and so if she still doesn't get it, maybe she will, and hey, mom, if you're hearing, I love you, you know it's great. I love her. I wish she would change her mind, but at the same time I have to guard my heart, and I can't allow her to continue to make the decision to, oh, okay, we're fine one day and then the next day, oh, I just don't want to return your call. And I've been waiting for her to return my call for years. But I mean, hey, all I could do is pray for her. I love her and I could just pray for her.
I
That's
think
it.
that's beautiful. And I think that was all part of your healing journey, right? To be able to stand in your
Yes.
power now and
Yeah.
see the bigger picture for other people, like you were saying, is
Yeah.
let them find their way.
Yeah, and absolutely, she will. We just have to trust, right? The same God that did it for me is going to do it for her. Because if he took my heart of stone, and everybody's going to read chapters 1 through 6.5, woo, until the Lord talked to me. It wasn't until God talked to me that I'm telling you, I lived, I was a reckless wretch out there. That's the only way to put it. I was a hostage of shame, baby, a hostage of shame out there. I was doing so much bad. I had no knowledge of good. All I knew how to do was to gang bang, drug deal, drug use, and fight. That was all I ever knew how to do. So to be transmogrified into this beautiful miracle of God, it's humbling. It's truly, truly humbling to know who I used to be and to know that I can't even accelerate myself to who I used to be. I can't even go there like, curse words. No, people don't, like, no, she don't curse. But you know what? That's a true transformation. That's what we call establishing a relationship with the Lord, and humbling yourself. And again, taking accountability for the things that you've done and also combining that with forgiveness. I truly believe that's what heals. That is what allows us to move past the past, and allows us to prosper because and feel so much lightened, and because it's like when we walk, with that heaviness inside of us, all we're doing is just walking in heaviness, sadness, darkness. Our heart is being occupied with the dark, bitter things of the world. So when you clear out the bitterness and you take out the anger, then that's going to leave room to hear from God. And He's going to lead you and guide you, and your feet are going to walk in the path in which He has preserved. And that is nothing but a prosperous life. We just got to be willing to walk in it. That's all He asks.
I love that you say that. It reminds me a lot of what other people call the shadow work, is being able to really look at your shadow and really look at your darkness and um become accountable to that, and
Yeah.
but also forgive it.
Yes. Yes, it goes hand in hand. I really believe, because none of us are, hey, the Bible teaches us we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. There is not a one of us. It says even the righteous will be scarcely saved. So even the righteous is going to be barely saved. So we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. But it's, do you take accountability? Do you take accountability for your wrongdoing? Because I had to ask God for forgiveness for every person that I hurt. I was a fighter. I would just go pick a fight just because, like that was me. I'm mad as hell because my mom's mad at me. I'm getting slapped for telling my mother to keep my father out of her mouth. Like I'm mad as hell too. So I'm going out in the streets and I'm acting rebellious. I became a rebel, a refuge in my own familia. So it's like I was just out there. So yeah, you become rebellious and you do things. So when you do those things, man, Father, forgive me for stealing, forgive me for lying, forgive me for hurting people. We really have to take that accountability, but not only take accountability, but do it with a bona fide heart. Your heart has to be genuine when you come forward to release yourself. And that is what we call deliverance. So you just become delivered from that heaviness, from the darkness. And then when you experience that true life encounter, when you experience that encounter, then come back and let's talk, because you will never come back the same. Ooh, you'll never ever come back the same. And that's what transforms your life. That's what gets you to be like, oh my God, I just felt the presence of God. I just felt forgiven. Ooh, I was just forgiven. And that it's that supernatural encounter that you have, that you will never come back the same. And your mustard seed of faith is built. It begins to blossom into a tree, because now you're believing like, whoa, I'm coming back. And then you even try to curse. You can't curse no more. It's like you try to talk ways that you used to. You can't do it, because in your relationship is how you become transmogrified, which is a miraculous miracle transformation, you know.
So
So, and I
beautiful.
know because that was me. And that's what makes this story so good, is that, I tricked off on myself. I told all the bad on myself. I didn't leave no room for anybody to come and be like, well, you forgot about this. No, I'm sorry I hurt you. And I put this in my book and I'm sorry. Of course, I had to change all the names, and, I had to do all that stuff.
Oh,
But
that's right. So your name, you have a pen name. It's Faith Love.
faith, love.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Tell the audience like where they need to run, don't walk. Where can they find your book, Straight Out of Darkness, a story for God's glory?
Definitely on Amazon. That's the number one key, is the number one go-to. If you don't have an Amazon, you could definitely go to exlibris.com. Soon to be in the Barnes and Nobles locations, at a Barnes and Nobles near you. Yeah,
How exciting.
it
Are
is.
you
It's
so
truly.
excited? Because like people that are reading this, it's going to change their lives.
That was the intent. That was definitely the intent, and know that it is so powerful only because there's a combination of three things. Testimony, right? Like there, my whole testimony is in there, but it's delivered through spoken word, intertwined with scriptures. So it is so phenomenal. Like it is amazing. Like, okay, you don't even understand. My coach, I love her to pieces. Again, I love her. It's because of her. I just love her. She put me in a category of Denise. I have never, ever read a book like this before. And when you go to her house, okay, she has bookshelves on top of bookshelves loaded with books, okay? And coming from a woman who has all of this knowledge from all of these great books, and she says, this is something I have never read before. I was also told this is a perfectly seamlessly sewed book. I was amazed. I was like, wow. All I had prayed for was, Father God, you have so many great preachers and pastors and leaders and writers and so many great people already, right? Because I look up to so many people, Michelle Obama being one of them. But who also has written a book, right? So many great leaders that he's already used. God, what are you going to do with little old me from Humboldt Park? Like that was my thing. But look at what he did. He did something different. I said, Lord, just please, no matter what you do, just do something different. And again, I asked with a genuine heart, and I came forth with a genuine, seeking him genuinely, because again, I know I was bad and I know I didn't do a lot of things that I was proud of, and I never had, parents to support me or back me up or family members to back me up. So this is why I have the relationship that I have with the Lord. And I follow the guidance that he gave me because, seek and you'll find, you have not because you ask not. Faith without works is dead, so I had to put forth my faith. I mean, and there's so much more intertwined with this. I'll blow your pants off even more. Fast forwarding 8 years into sobriety, actually I'm celebrating 10 years. 10 years ago on December 17th, which will be 10 years on Sunday, I walked into a doctor's office to be told that I was battling brain cancer, lymphoma, and multiple sclerosis.
Oh shit.
Girl, that was like, that was a cross, a jab, and an uppercut to knock me the hell out. Like Harry Carey said, holy cow. Like, that was so life-changing for me. It was the moment that I was, OMG, what am I going to do here? They immediately, of course, wanted to go in and do surgery, but this tumor is in my cerebellum. No. So I educated people as to where the tumor was growing. It's in the cerebellum. Our cerebellum is our puppet master. Any little wrong thing, I would have been done. So I chose, by the glory of God, to listen to the Lord when he said, let me get the glory out of your life. I said, Lord, I'm going to die anyway, right? Eve put a great time capsule on us all. So I gave in and I submitted, and I had asked the Lord I said, okay, here I am. I'm going to die anyway. So take me, but just give me, Father God, please let me see my children to adulthood, because who was going to raise my children? Something had happened to me. Who was going to be there for my kids? My family who abandoned me? How much better are they going to treat my kids? So I didn't have nobody to trust. So I had to put my faith in God, and say, Lord, here I am. Give me enough life. I'll do whatever you need. And I did. And I kept on working out and I kept on pushing. And coming out of the MRI, I lost 60% usage of my legs. It was the most difficult thing to ever do. I walked like a 90-year-old, on a normal basis. Coming up the stairs, I had to stop, coming up halfway because something happened in my legs. It was like somebody swiped out my legs from underneath me. And I lost 60% usage. I was barely able to walk. Here I go. Well, let me take you a little before that. I had run a half marathon. Before that, that's what brought out the diagnosis. I couldn't sleep. I had swelled up after I ran a half marathon and life just wasn't the same. I went back, they found the cyst and the tumor in the brain. And then that's when they gave me the big diagnosis. I kind of took some time off from the gym. Then I went back to the gym. Um, I was swimming 20 laps easily, like nothing, training for a half marathon. And when I went to go swim, I couldn't even swim a lap, not a one. I couldn't even, I made it 3/4 of a way and my legs just instantaneously felt a burn.
So
I could
how
not
did you
breathe.
end up, did you end up making a recovery from that then?
Girl, you talk about God being so good. I was just getting there. So all I heard was, you gotta keep moving. And that's all I did. I embedded that in my heart. I wore it around my neck like like a necklace. You gotta keep moving. And that's what I've done. I fought my way as hard as it was. It burned, the pain was excruciating, but I kept on pushing. I kept on showing up little by little, day by day, little bit more day by day. And now, 10 years later, I can ever so proudly say, to God be the glory, 6 triathlons under my belt, over 40 medals hanging in my room. Like when the doctors had told me, stop running, you're so degenerated in my spine that if I run and if I keep running, the disc could slip out and cause me to be paralyzed. But I said, oh no, Satan, get behind me. What? Tell me what I can't do, and I'm going to show you that I can. Because the Lord says I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So, Lord, I need your strength because I am weak. Let the weak say that I am strong. Well, I am weak, and I need your strength. And that's what I've done. The past 10 years of my life, fighting back, taking it back, counter fighting, saying, I'm not going to take no for an answer. No. And I was unwilling to fail. I was unwilling to give up. I was unwilling. If I still had, if I would, I didn't care the percentage of how much I had, I still had them. Denise, you gotta keep moving. Keep it on up. Keep moving. And that's what I did. And I didn't give up. You don't even understand. 3 years into my battle of getting my legs back. Oh, I love this. The story's in the book. The Lord had put in my heart that he wanted me to run a triathlon for him. I said, that's not you, Satan, get behind me. Like, that's not you. But it was. Oh my God, it truly was. And I just stood amazed. I was like, oh my God, I trained and I trained and I fulfilled my first one. And I couldn't believe that I was still standing after I ran a triathlon. Swimming, biking, running, all 3 events put together in one.
Right.
Running is just running, but this was, I started with the smaller one, and then in 2018, he had me do the bigger one. That's where he built my mustard seed of faith. This was in Lake Michigan with no sand, no ground underneath me. This was a freestyle swim all the way a half mile. And I had said, Lord, if I make it out of that water, then I know I'm going to fulfill it in your name. It was definitely a challenge. Being number one was never my goal. Being number one never is still today is not my goal because I've accepted that I will never be number one, but completion, just complete it. Denise, just cross that finish line. So every time I have crossed that finish line, I've given credit where credit is due. And that's all to my God,
I
because
love it.
he's doing,
Oh my
he's
gosh,
doing.
Denise,
Ah!
I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story with the audience. And everybody needs to go run, don't walk, and buy Straight Out of Darkness, a story for God's glory, because your message today has just been absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me this platform to get my story out there because there's only one goal, and that is to instill hope into this hopeless world. Because right now there's so much darkness and people need hope right now. And I really believe that Straight Out of Darkness is their antidote of hope. So Go out, go get your book, go get your copy. Yay. I'll soon be book signing, you know. I hope I'll touch bases with you and, we'll put it out there when I'll do a book signing here in
Yeah, that'll be
Chicago.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, or
Yeah.
wherever, because I believe this book is going to spread like a wildfire and it's going to touch souls, and I'm going to be not only in Chicago, but throughout the nations. So, yes,
Yes, girl.
look out, because here we come. Yes.